Welcome to the second official episode of the Home One podcast, where we talk about everything and anything related to Star Wars. In this case, we have a very specific focus, specifically the Rogue One movie. Zach is joining me as usual. Hi,
Yes.
Zach.
I'm Zach.
And this is Mike, your host here. And we are here to, we just got out of Star Wars Rogue One, a Star Wars story, sorry. And, we really just wanted to get initial reactions out. Now, this is by no means going to be comprehensive. This is by no means going to be our last say on any of this, but really just wanted to kind of start the conversation here and at least get our initial reactions on our first viewing of it. And I'm really interested to see what my second and third viewing will be as well. So we'll get into that in a bit here. Zach, what'd you think, man?
I have several thoughts.
All right. I hope
not,
so.
I'm not going to let
Negativity?
friends on Facebook dictate my thoughts, whether or not they liked it or not. So, start out with the negatives. And I'm going to rant a little bit here, so
That's
Mike,
fine.
bear with me. Feel free to pop in occasionally if you'd like. I thought the pacing was poor.
Yeah.
I thought they easily could have drawn it out another 20 minutes to a half an hour. I thought the character development, because of the pacing, was extremely poor. I felt like they kind of forced relationships onto us that weren't really developed well, especially between, well, actually two different times with Jin and Cassian, and then with, did we actually catch his name? Is it Chirrut for Donnie Yen?
Yeah, true, Imwe.
And then
He said it once, I think.
his
when they were on
his
Jeddah.
friend, the other guy.
You're talking about Baze Malbus.
Yeah,
Yep.
base. So I felt like both of those relationships weren't developed properly.
Okay.
I don't know if it's Disney properties or what it is, but there were some legitimately funny times, but I feel like they're trying to force humor on us a little too much.
That's fair.
I also feel like Star Wars still has a problem of forcing characters onto us.
I see what you did there.
Of bringing in characters that aren't necessary to be there.
Are you have any specifics in there?
Well, specifically R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't really. I mean, obviously that was a little cheesy, a little forced, but I mean, they were in there for about 5 seconds, just so you knew they were there.
If you're gonna bring someone in, I would have liked to seen someone from one of the squadrons, like Red Leader or something like that.
They totally had them in there. Did you not catch that?
Maybe
you see
I
that?
didn't.
Oh, I've got some news for you then. That was
I guess
awesome.
I didn't catch things.
I'll get into that in my
I'm not
good
as big
parts
of a
then.
nerd as you.
That's totally fine. Don't worry about it.
The acting was subpar.
Fine. It was fine.
I
Yeah.
thought it was below average, but again, that goes back to pacing of a movie and how to pace it out and build story well. That being said, with all those problems that I had, I still really enjoyed it as a movie. And I think it's hard for me to say. First viewings, when there's so much anticipation, like I still have a little bit of kind of like vibe going just from excitement of it all.
And the ending was pretty crazy.
And I'm having a hard time kind of separating that from my actual emotions at the moment.
Yep.
I think I will eventually come to really love this movie. And I think it'll have like a special place in my heart. Because of it showed us something that we really haven't seen before from a Star Wars movie. It showed us kind of that darker side. It showed us that
the war,
an actual war
and the
taking
stars.
place, and yes, and really feeling the impact of mortality of characters.
Yeah.
Instead of, just kind of these side characters like Porkins.
Okay. Let's. Sorry, I didn't say it at the beginning. Spoiler alert. We're going to just be kind of talking here. If you haven't seen this movie and you don't want anything spoiled, please stop and watch the movie first before you listen to this, because we are not going to filter ourselves at all. Continue.
So,
We
that
didn't give
being
anything away
said,
before.
the ending was one of the most ridiculous and awesome endings
That
I
was
have
fun.
ever seen in a movie.
That was real fun.
Like,
Yep.
you got to understand, I've been waiting my entire life to see Darth Vader be badass.
Yep.
like to the extent that I've read in books and in comics and even seen in video games. I've been waiting, like I didn't know I was waiting for that the first time I saw Star Wars, but I've been waiting for that for, 28 years of my life now. And we get a glimpse of what Darth Vader can be and how ridiculously awesome he is.
Yeah.
I've always been more of a fan of the dark side, and I feel like I gravitate to villains more than I do heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And so Darth Vader has always been like, I mean, he's possibly the greatest villain of all time. And so seeing that in just even a brief scene literally made the movie for me.
He was very powerful. Yep.
That ending and how they wrapped it up. And I want to hear what you think about kind of what they did with Peter Cushing and Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, that was definitely in my I want to say my negative side of things.
I didn't love it, but I don't know what you do.
Well, I want to touch on Vader real quick first. So you mentioned Vader. You mentioned that he was a badass. That was awesome at the very end. He basically, for those of you who haven't seen it or just kind of want a memory rehash there, he basically walked down a corridor filled with rebel troopers and basically just took them down one by one using both his lightsaber and the Force. And that was pretty fantastic. I really enjoyed seeing that, and just it was badass enough that it felt like the power of Vader was there, but at the same time, it wasn't just this crazy over-the-top Yoda flipping everywhere and just doing weird stuff.
It was very
controlled.
slow and almost like he was very intentional with what he did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quick movements. There's an intimidation factor with him that I feel like he very much understands.
Yeah.
And he just tosses people.
Yep.
And like, I'm not messing with you. And just...
Yeah, he was always taking a step forward. He was never retreating or anything like that. He never paused. It was controlled ferocity, and it was really everything that I could have expected from a quality Vader footage scene, and it was really nice. I liked it. Yeah. That was good. And also, obviously, having James Earl Jones voicing him again, that was cool. I did kind of... I thought the part with Krennic when he was like, "Oh, don't choke on your ambitions." Yeah, that was a little cheesy, but I was fine with it. Honestly, there were a lot of borderline cheesy moments in this movie, but I've decided that in the end, I actually appreciated it. Now going to the Grand Moff Tarkin bit, and also a little bit with Princess Leia, they used the. I don't know what they call it these days, but they use the motion capture, to kind of make it look like they're younger or capture younger footage of the individuals. So they had both Princess Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin do that. Obviously, we've seen that in Civil War with Tony Stark. We saw that terribly in Tron.
Yeah.
And so, there's been really good and really bad versions of it in different movies. This was probably the best I've seen it, to be fair, because there were a couple bits with Grand Moff Tarkin, honestly, that I was looking at and I was like, wait, is that the computer CGI stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes, it is. So it was enough that I could tell it was, and honestly, from the first moment that Grand Moff Tarkin stepped onto the screen, I knew it was that, but it was enough that I had to kind of remind myself that it was every now and then. So it was good. But I just, I really do wish that they would have found just some way to either cast somebody and put some makeup or, facial prosthetics on them to make them look more like Tarkin. I would have probably forgiven them if it was good enough. But, it was just a little bit
it was
cheap
too
for me.
It was too distracting.
A little cheap. Honestly, and two, the models of the Star Destroyers looked a little bit too white, like a little bit too model-esque.
Yeah.
Obviously, they used models in the original Star Wars trilogy to have Star Destroyers and, they're the warships. And they did a really good job with that. But I felt like it was a little bit too clean looking on this one. And it felt a little fake. Yeah. So, there were just bits where they tried. And I think they either just didn't have the technique down or something. So there were little bits like that felt a little off. But overall, I was fine with it. Like it's not, like I said, it was the best version of that facial capture that I've seen.
Yeah.
And so, props for them for doing a great job on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was the best that we've seen of that kind of technology, but it's still not good enough. It's still too distracting.
Yeah.
To actually,
it did. That's what it did. It distracted me. It pulled me out a little bit.
It took your attention off of the scene and off of what was happening, and was just like you just kind of looked at him and like, no, I can tell. I mean, it's good, but I can tell, and that's what I sat there thinking. I'm like, it's good, but it's and I was distracted by the distraction of it.
Yep, it's true. So, I wish they would have found some way around that, but they didn't. And what they did was the best I've seen, so I can forgive them for it. That's fine. Whatever. All right. Another thing that I didn't really appreciate, which kind of goes along the pacing that you spoke of, is there were a little bit too convenient parts in the story. Yeah. Like, especially the one that was very jarring for me was when they were on Yavin 4, and they were kind of having the council or whoever it was really debating whether to go and go to Scarif to find the plans, and if it was a legit thing that they needed to pursue or not.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little convenient that, even Mon Mothma was opposed to it, and she was like, without the support of the council, we can't really do much. But then Jin walks out, and Cassian and 20 people are just sitting there waiting for her, like, oh, we back you.
And
it's
like no
she
real
just walked
plan.
out. She walked out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that bothered me too. Of there was no plan.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, let's go.
Yep.
It's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, have any of you ever been to Scarif before? Do you know that there's going to be trees and stuff like that to kind of cover you at the landing pad? What if you had to land within an Imperial base? And it's just like, well, fan out, guys. Oh, crap.
Well, and we touched on, and this again goes back to the pacing of in the first. Okay, so how the movie opens.
I didn't like the first half of the movie. I don't think the most.
How the movie opens. Yeah. And you should know this if you're listening to us. But basically, before they do the title scene. Before that, after the title scene, we touched 5 planets in a matter of minutes.
That was real quick. Yep.
And it just...
It was too quick.
Yes, it was. It was way too quick. It was like, I can't get my bearings.
Yeah.
I can't catch myself here. Everything's all... Do some setup shots.
Yep, exactly.
But it was just boom, boom, boom. And there was no okay, we're going from here to here. There was no setup. It was just go, go, go.
Yeah, and honestly, I felt like they didn't set a lot up with those transitions even. They were like, oh, we're going to have a conversation on this planet. Then we're going to have a conversation on this planet. And it was not enough of the plot move forward for me to be like, wait, no, we were just on something there. Go back to that. Do we have anything more to say about that? So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't even remember half the names of the planets that were listed. Well, that's the thing.
There. Some of the planets, I'm like, ooh, this looks interesting.
There were 4 or 5 planets.
Yeah, it was, including the planet that she grew up on.
Yeah.
And the Ursos lived on.
Yeah.
They jumped to at least 3 other planets from there.
Okay.
I think it was 4 too. So
yeah.
I mean, it was kind of disorienting to do that, and
even having the Bodhi character, he was confronted, with that monster or whatever that was could tell if you saying lies or not. It was. I appreciate it for the fact that it's a sci-fi movie and they have to introduce these outlandish ways of doing things, and it makes it feel a little bit more deep of a universe if you do stuff like that. But it was so small and so, I don't know, not well set up again.
Yeah.
Where it was just oh, why'd they have to have that creature thing there? That was kind of weird. That was weird. So
the more I think about it, the more I think they're relying on the fact of we know what happened, we know what's going to happen, so we don't really...
Basically, that thing was a Rathtar for me. That was...
It's just... I mean, the more I think about it, it's just kind of the pacing ultimately is my biggest qualm, and it's ultimately what's bothering me the most, because we know the story and we know what happens, you should be more dedicated to character development, not story and move from point A to point B.
Yep.
And also, I'm just sitting here thinking, I wouldn't typically say this. I think too many movies stretch themselves too far. But I think this movie could have benefited from being a 3-hour long movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was entertaining enough to keep my attention for 3 hours. I mean, it's about 2 hours and 13, 14, 15 minutes, something like that. But yeah, I definitely think it could have benefited from being longer. It would have helped out the pacing a lot. It would have helped out that character development a lot. And I think ultimately it would have made it seem like better acted as well because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it again, like a lot of it was like too quick of transition or too convenient of a just like, oh, like even just the fact that Baze and Chirrut were able to go to Yavin 4 and not have this long like, oh, we're gonna clear you first, we're gonna interrogate you a little bit, make sure that you're okay to be on Yavin 4, our secret base. It's like you just take Cassian's word that they're okay. Like Cassian just met them like a day ago, and They sort of showed that they weren't Imperial, but still, like, is that enough that you would just let them go to your secret base?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, it could have really benefited from, a minute longer scene here and there or whatever it is. So, I kind of want to move into a little bit of the things that I liked. I just want to touch on, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of this part. I might just be spitballing for a bit here. But I'm just going to touch on a couple things that I really enjoyed.
Okay.
And I don't even remember, but there were multiple times during this movie where I was just like, oh, they included that? That was awesome. That was so cool. So obviously having Tarkin and Leia, look right.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was awesome. Obviously having James Earl Jones voice Darth Vader was cool. But like other things, like having the old cruisers, like the Nebulon B cruisers, which were like the medical frigate that Luke was getting his hand repaired on in Empire Strikes Back. Like those guys were there. There were a couple other transports and stuff like that in the fight at the end of the movie that were, the same kind of transports and cruisers that they were using during that time. So even though we had things, and we kind of talked about this in the first episode of Home One here, we were talking about, I didn't really approve of there being another U-Wing, I think
U-Wing,
it is,
yeah.
and then also like the AT-ACTs, the troop transports or whatever you want to call them. I was like, you're including new stuff and like Death Troopers and whatever, but I really did appreciate them having X-Wings and Y-Wings factor in a lot in this movie. And, just even though they had a couple weird Imperial shuttles, that like pyramid type shuttle that Krennic was always using, they also had a bunch of other ships, including like the Hammerhead transport and stuff like that were really cool, or even the blockade runners, from the original, especially one that Princess Leia was on. Those things really made it feel Star Wars, and that was really cool. I really appreciated that. Another thing I was really nerding out about, and I kind of mentioned it, I think I tapped you on the shoulder when it happened, was that Krennic went to meet Darth Vader at one point in the movie. And if I remember correctly, they didn't actually say what planet it was or anything like that. But in the books that are not canon anymore, Darth Vader had a castle. It was Bast Castle. And it was really cool. And I was like, Darth Vader has a castle. And Darth Vader's grandson basically went with his friends and a Jedi Master and went and kind of, looked for a couple of Jedi teachings in it and stuff like that. It was really cool. But just the fact that Darth Vader had a castle and they went and visited that castle, or at least some, replica of it, in the new canon, that was awesome. I was geeking out about that. Also, they, just like they used Sir Alec Guinness's voice for Obi-Wan in Episode 7, Force Awakens, they used legit footage from A New Hope on both Gold Leader and Red Leader. So Gold Leader was the Y-Wing lead pilot.
Oh,
and,
that's what you were nerding
and
out
Red
about.
Leader was the red pilot. And that was legit footage from them, actually, like lines that they said. And what they did, and I could tell because I've seen Episode 4 like 1,000 times, is that they actually just put, the outside of the cockpit of the X-Wings, they put the Scarif battle up in there. But that was like legitimately the footage that they had used in Episode 4. And I was freaking out about, like, holy crap, that's gold leader right there. Holy crap, that's red leader too. Oh my goodness. And then even the fact that they set it up, it was kind of cheesy, but at the same time I appreciated it. They had Red 5 die. Like so Red 5 in the Red Squadron was no longer there. And that's the place that Luke took, in A New Hope. So that was cool. I was like, oh, there goes Red 5. Of course he died. He was the, chubbier looking guy. He was just like, I forget. I don't think he was the one who skipped off of the deflector shield, but he died during the thing. So, but there's little things like that. And there were at least 3 or 4 other times that stuff like that happened in the movie. And I was like, they included that or they tied that in. That was cool. So I really appreciated that. That was awesome. So they did a lot of good send-offs that I don't think that a lot of people actually caught, but I did, at least in the moment, and I really appreciated it. So that really helped to ground this movie for me. And I remember that was one of my biggest things that I was looking for, was like, don't mess up Darth Vader and make this feel like it's in this universe. And I think that even though there were a couple things that were a little bit too cheesy or too well fit, like, there were a couple things that really grounded it in the Star Wars universe for me. So I really appreciated that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, I obviously did not catch that stuff. But I thought I kind of disagree with you in a sense of I like that they're bringing in some of this technology and some of these things that we haven't seen before. And although, yes, the going from planet to planet was disorienting, I really appreciate that they're exploring several other worlds, at least for a moment. And then I kind of like the idea of them having, especially the Empire having different ships and stuff like that. But the Rebels really don't. And that makes sense because the Rebels are, basically just scrapping together whatever they can. Yeah. They're not going to have a whole huge variety of stuff. They're basically going to use the same stuff. Where the Empire, they literally built the Death Star, a moon-sized killing machine. It's just like, they can probably put together a few different style of troop transports and different things like that.
That's so. Fair.
And I loved seeing, like, I feel like that's something that we didn't see in the originals outside of the Death Star was just big tech. So seeing an entire planet covered in shields was like really cool to me.
That was awesome. Yeah.
Like I'm just like, whoa. Like we haven't seen that kind of tech before.
Yep.
On that kind of scale. So that was fun for me to see. It was, I mean, I probably have more bad things to say than good things to say, but I don't want people to get confused. I still very much enjoyed this movie. And like I said, I think it will eventually grow on me.
Yeah.
This is like a song that you hear for the first time and you're like, I'm not sure if I like that song. And then you hear it again and you're like, you know what? That's pretty good.
Yep.
And then you can become obsessed and you watch or listen to it.
And you never know what's going to actually like kind of catch with you and stick with you on that first initial viewing. But then second or third viewing, some things pop out more and you're like, oh, I can forgive this, or I don't really like that. So.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I came out of Batman versus Superman but then I started looking into it a little more and stuff didn't bother me as much as it did.
Yeah.
So I think we got to be careful on the front end first viewing of, being that first reaction.
Oh, for sure.
So
I think one of the other things that I just remembered that I really enjoyed too was when I was younger, when I was a young lad, I bought a book called the Star Wars Annotated Screenplays. And basically what they did, I still have this book, it's up on the shelf. It's basically this book that has all the screenplays of the first 3 movies, the original trilogy. And it basically has the in-between context from George Lucas and just, other people like producers and stuff like that who talk about the original drafts of the screenplay. And there were like 5 or 6 different drafts in there. And obviously it shows the evolution of where George Lucas's initial vision started and where it ended up to be Star Wars. And what was really cool was that one of the things, if I remember correctly, and I'll correct myself later if I'm wrong on this, but if I remember correctly, one of the initial things was that I forget, I think it was Anakin Starkiller was the initial Luke Skywalker character in the movies, and the whole plot was that there wasn't the Force, there was the wills, and if I remember correctly in the movie here, Chariot was a member of the Order of the Wills or something like that. They said something like that. And I love the fact that they referenced that. I was like, that is a deep cut right there. If I caught that correctly, that was really cool that they, referred to themselves, whatever he was. He wasn't a Jedi, but he was some sort of, follower of the Wills or the Wills Society or something like that.
Yeah.
But I really did enjoy Chariot's character, Donnie Yen's portrayal of him, because I think that was one of the things I was a little worried about in the trailers, was that they were saying he wasn't a Jedi, but how the hell did he survive these encounters with stormtroopers that we saw little bits and pieces of in the trailers? And he was every bit a Donnie Yen character, just kicking the crap out of these stormtroopers. And at the same time, he's a blind dude, and he was legitimately just this blind faith in the Force. And I thought that was awesome because I don't know, something about that in a sci-fi movie for me, I just really appreciated his character. And it felt more of an old school Star Wars character to me for whatever reason. Like, I just felt like this blind devotion to a religion or some sort of code of conduct was really, it's something that you don't see in these sci-fi movies anymore. And I don't know if I'm just kind of spitballing here, but his character and just his portrayal of his character really hit me in a really positive way. And I attached to his character really well. And I really appreciated just everything about his character. And even in the end, when basically he had his trust in the Force and he was walking through the battlefield saying, something like, I forget if it was like, I'm the Force is one, or the Force is with me, or something like that. I forget what his mantra was or his prayer, but he was walking through the battlefield, not getting shot at all without, the assistance of any of his comrades or anything like that. And basically, as soon as he fulfilled his mission that the Force wanted him to fulfill, to keep the Death Star from destroying everything in the galaxy, then he got shot, or he got blown up or whatever it was. I think he got blown up.
Yeah, he was on the edge of an explosion.
Yeah. And so, I really appreciated that too. I was like, I understand that he's going to die right here, but like, that's such a cool character arc. So, for all the times that they failed to develop a relationship between Cassian and Jin and, any of the other, or even just Baze's character at all, really. Yeah. I feel like they did a great job with Cherry.
Yeah, Donnie Yen's Chirrut was probably my favorite character. K2SO, Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk's always going to be just a great voice actor and severely underutilized character actor, in my opinion.
Yep, he's good.
He was very, very serious, but at the same time, the humor in the movie, very much the humor in the movie. And I felt like they developed a freaking droid better than they developed several of the characters.
Yep.
But yes, Chirrut was also my favorite. Just because, like, I don't know. I thought
he's an old school character. I really liked him.
Yeah, there's just something about his kind of wisdom and faith, like you said, was very in his complete lack of fear. Just that was cool. That was cool to see. And yeah, he was probably one of the better developed ones.
Yep.
But I mean, that's kind of an easy development when you're basically your entire character arc is based on faith.
Yeah.
So
can I just make a little gripe here that may or may not be warranted? Okay. It felt like K2SO's character had really good lines and was the funny part of the whole movie. Yeah. At the same time, what is he, an Imperial security droid? What is he? He's something to that extent.
Yeah.
All the other security droids we saw in that movie didn't talk. They were very robotic. What's the deal with him having a sense of humor or just wry quips all the time? Like, you could say that
coming from?
You could say that that's not necessarily humor. That's more just like him speaking his mind too much, and it just so happens to be funny. But that's a little too inconvenient for me to be like, oh, it's a security droid. It's like, no, I don't think a security droid would be running his mouth like that.
Programmed this droid
exactly.
to be mouthy like
That's some
this?
severe reprogramming. So, yeah.
It reminded me of Interstellar when Matthew McConaughey is talking to the robots and like, hey, take that humor down about 20%.
Yeah, that worked a little bit better for me, honestly, as far as logic. I think that K2SO's lines were a little bit better. And at the end, I really did appreciate him and just the way that he went out as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No, I had more of emotional connection to his death than almost any other character, which I was like sitting here thinking,
Well, and I honestly, that's another thing is I figured that almost all of them, if not all of them, would die. Yeah. And spoiler alert, they all died. Okay.
Yeah.
That actually did happen, but I don't think that any of them were very cheesy. Like, I think that at least the majority, remind me if I'm missing one of them, but I feel like none of the deaths were just too convenient for me to be like, oh, they had to have him die, so he died. Mm-hmm. It was like, it was kind of obvious that, stuff happened, or like, the pilot, what was the pilot's name again? Shoot, I'm forgetting.
Is it Bodhi?
Bodhi. Yep. Bodhi Rook, his character, he got a grenade thrown into his ship, and there's nothing you could do about that.
His death was very heroic.
Yeah.
Which I don't think also, you can make.
I think that was the one you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, Cherry, you kind of figured he would die, and, you figured that, once Jin and Cassian were on the planet, like, oh yeah, they're going to get killed by that thing. And Baze was just like, once Chirrut's dead, Baze is just going to shoot a bunch of people. Yeah. Kind of like what Chewie did when Han died.
Yeah.
But Chewie just, didn't have as many people to confront after that. So, no, I appreciated that, they died, but they died in a way that worked. So that was fine with me.
Yeah, yeah. It did kind of bother me that Bodhi just went out kind of the way he did with really no notice, and all of a sudden grenade and gone. But at the same time, even though that he was, a big part of this story and a hero per se of the story, you can't have everybody die a hero's death. You can't have You can't have everybody go down shooting like Mace was.
Super poignant moments for everybody.
Some people just need to die.
I mean, honestly, Jin and Cassian, they didn't really die super heroic deaths either. Like, they finished their mission, and then they kind of walked out onto the beach or whatever, and it was, well, we're screwed.
It was an accepted death.
Yeah.
They knew what they were getting into. For all the lack of planning that went into this, they knew that the likelihood of survival was minimal at best.
I want to kind of bring up a point that you also don't have really access to, so I'll just kind of talk for a bit. But it kind of justifies and kind of doesn't another one of my questions surrounding that. So that was a lot. So basically what happens is that I read Catalyst, Star Wars Catalyst. It was a book that was basically a direct lead up to this. And during Catalyst, it basically outlined this, story between Orson Krennic's character and Galen Erso's character, and how Krennic and Erso were friends when they were younger, and then Erso was just this brilliant engineering mind and figured out how to use kyber crystals, to harness energy. And he really wanted to use the energy of the kyber crystals for energy production, to help worlds who didn't really have very good energy production or resources to do that, to survive. Mm-hmm. And basically what Krennic wanted, and the rest of the Empire wanted, was that, you could weaponize that specifically for the Death Star. And so, the whole book was basically a battle for Galen Erso's soul and just his mind of just, what is he going to fight for? Is he going to develop weapons for the Empire without knowing, under Krennic's rule, or is he going to listen to his wife? And, just like not give in to basically him just getting all the resources he wanted to develop all the technology that he wanted, and that kind of lust for discovery and science. Mm-hmm. And so it was a really cool setup for the beginning of this movie when Krennic, that in the end, basically they had Saw Gerrera, Forrest Whitaker's character, basically smuggle them off of Coruscant right under Krennic's nose, which kind of led to a demotion from Krennic, which is why he was under Grand Moff Tarkin at the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
When in the book they were basically peers and they were button heads all the time.
Okay.
And so basically it set it up really well for that when he was found at the beginning of this movie, the very beginning of this movie, it set that up really well where Krennic really didn't like his wife and would have put her down in an instant if he knew that it would cause Galen to be able to, work on the technology for the Empire under duress or whatever. And so, that really made sense from the perspective, especially of Tarkin versus Krennic and that rivalry.
Yeah, built up that rivalry.
And so that was my issue that I was kind of trying to bring up was like, why did Tarkin use the super weapon at the end to destroy that base on Scarif? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's some rebels down there, but why are you blowing the whole thing up? Like, that's dumb. That's like an Imperial data center, basically, with a whole bunch of plans and stuff like that. I know he might have thought that the Death Star plans were still down there and they hadn't grabbed them yet. But at the same time, he just blew up the whole planet, basically, or at least cracked the crust enough to make it inhabitable again, or uninhabitable. And so, but at the same time, he might have thought that as an opportunity for him to eliminate Krennic.
Yeah.
And so, in light of that, like, it felt a little weird that he was just like, fire the weapon on the planet. But at the same time, that might have been a power grab. I don't know. I don't know if that's too big of a cut or not, but
I feel like, I feel like, nobody knew at that point in time.
Yeah.
Shoot, Jin didn't even know that the transmission was actually made successfully.
Yeah.
She didn't know at that point in time. So nobody knew right then and there what exactly had happened.
Yep.
So, it makes sense to me that he would have, that was, okay, we're just...
Destroy those plans.
There's too much at stake here.
Yeah.
I think it's like you realize that yes, you're taking a big risk, but there's too much at stake in the time and the effort and the power.
Yeah.
By the way, did
he didn't use that line?
Didn't actually,
the
power.
No, there were a couple things in the trailers that were not in the movie.
Yeah.
Specifically that, or the TIE Fighter rising up to take on Jin up on the pad up there.
Yeah. I think I don't know if they wondered like how I don't know if we can realistically get her out of this situation.
Yeah.
This happens in movies all the time though, of the super convenient shot at the end, when Cassian saves Jin. Stop effing monologuing, man.
Yeah.
Just shoot her.
Yep.
And this goes back to again of if you don't see them die, they're still alive.
I kept on hitting Danielle's knee every time. I was like, kiss her.
That was the thing.
That felt like it was leading up to that.
It did. It really did. And that bothered me
Yeah.
though. I'm like, yeah, because that when they pass it,
I was hoping they wouldn't, to be fair.
Yes.
But I was just like, that feels like that.
It definitely
right
feels.
there.
But it's just like to me, watching this movie, there's no reason for them to be romantic.
Exactly. Yep.
She just got over the fact that he was about to kill her father.
Yep, exactly.
And they're like, oh, now I'm on your side now.
Yeah.
It's just like she would have been appreciative that he got some guys together to help out in the situation. But you don't just get over the fact that you originally were going to kill my dad.
Also, one final little gripe here before we kind of wrap it up. The travel time in between, hey, we lost contact with our guys on Scarif. Oh, hey. Or no, what was it? It was the other planet. Urdu, I think it was, when they went to go after Galen. The rainy planet. I think it was Urdu. They lost connection with them, and like 10 minutes later, there were X-Wings just destroying the place.
Well,
and I was like,
the same thing on Scarif, though.
Yeah.
Just like, but hey, we got rebels on the ground.
But that's one thing that I've noticed with both this movie and with Force Awakens. They travel super quick between planets. And I just find that I don't appreciate that. Like, there's a sense of scale within the old trilogy where, you have cutscenes and stuff like that of other things that at least make it feel like it takes a while to travel between places. And I don't care, if that's just something that I'm perceiving right now. Like, I don't appreciate that it makes the universe feel a little bit smaller.
I feel like every time I watch a Star Wars movie,
Yep.
I don't take into consideration what's happened in previous Star Wars movies.
I do.
I keep well, that's the thing. And yeah, I do to an extent, but every time I see a spaceship out in space making noise, it bothers me a little.
Yeah, that's fair. That's like science.
of my minor background in physics. And so like everything gets compared to like Interstellar then about how time works and how you guys can't travel from planet to planet like this without significant chunks of time being missed out.
It's true.
And stuff like that. And so I just gotta kind of get past that. But yeah, at the same time, the quickness. I mean, they deployed the entire fleet at the end of the movie.
Yep.
In a very short amount of time.
Fuel those things up. They're going spaceborne in 10 seconds.
That's not even so much actual travel time.
Yep.
There's a thing called prep in the real world that needs to happen.
It's very true. Yep.
And
I feel like we got a little bit more of a sense of that in episode 4 when the Death Star was kind of approaching.
Yeah.
And they made a big deal about them kind of skirting around trying to get everything ready to go to get those X-Wings and Y-Wings up in the air, much less all the rest of those capital ships and whatnot. So how much did you want Admiral Raddus to yell, "It's a trap," at the end part? How much did you want to be there? That would have been awesome. That would have been so cool.
Well, so I can't remember when it was, but somebody said something. I was like, that sounds very familiar to me. I mean, I was thinking about it, but I wasn't like, say it.
It's a Mon Calamari. He's in one of those chairs. Make him say it. It kind of bothered me. I don't really know what that capital ship was that Admiral Raddus was in, but it didn't look like a Mon Cal cruiser, and I wanted him to be in a Mon Cal cruiser. So I don't know. Maybe it was. Who knows? It was maybe a different model. I don't know. But anyways, that concludes our basic discussion.
40-minute discussion.
Wrapping it up, Zach. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts are I don't have a great answer at this point in time.
Yep.
I need to see it again.
Yeah, it's true.
Final thoughts are, good Lord, I love the ending.
Mm-hmm. The ending was awesome.
I loved it. I really, really did. And overall, I really enjoyed it, but it had plenty of flaws.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would agree. Despite its flaws, though, I had a fun time. And again, it addressed the two things that I wanted it to address, which were don't mess up Darth Vader and make this feel like it's supposed to be here, within the timeline. And between Catalyst and A New Hope, despite all the different, inconveniences or shortcomings that it had, it in the end convinced me that it worked. And so I really appreciated that. Again, these are our first thoughts. These are our first speculations. These are our first initial inklings of what we feel like it did to the Star Wars universe here. Yeah. And, we reserve the right to change our opinion or evolve our opinion, upon a second or third or fourth viewing. So initially, though, we had a great time. And that end scene made it really fun. So
yeah, the end scene
was awesome.
Literally made the movie for me.
Yep. So anyways, that about wraps it up for episode 2 here of the Home One podcast. Again, this was our official initial Rogue One review, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this a lot on the future podcasts as well, and just the implications for what it does to the Star Wars universe, and the fact that, obviously, Jyn is not Rey's mom. So
yeah, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So anyways,
I mean, she's an adult. She could have done
things. No, I really don't think she could have. Anyways, that concludes this
Maybe
podcast.
She gave up a baby for an adoption. That's going to be it for me.
No, it wasn't. I was Mike. That was Zach. And thank you guys so much for listening again. Check our website, cheapshotcinema.com, or any of the other podcasts or articles that we post on a weekly basis if you like things besides Star Wars.
Yeah, and if you like this video and or any of our other videos, like and subscribe to the channel.
On YouTube.
Yep. Thanks for coming.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.